All right, welcome into Buffalo Plus. Mike Catalana, Dan Fates. I am Jenna Cottrell. The Bills losing to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship, 38-24. Mike, you were in Kansas City for this game at Arrowhead. This Bills team just seemed outmatched by all of Kansas City's weapons.
Boy, this is twice that the Bills have played the Chiefs, and I've been really disappointed. And honestly, the Chiefs are a better team than the Bills. But I've been disappointed, and I was disappointed tonight. Sean McDermott let the team down. You need to be more aggressive when you're playing against the Chiefs. That doesn't mean that we're going to win the game. Patrick Mahomes is phenomenal. Andy Reid's game plan was great. But the going for the field goals and not being aggressive on the fourth downs, I think really hurt this team tonight. They got in a passive, conservative mindset, and the Chiefs just dominated. I mean, their offense is spectacular, but the Bills needed to push them with their own offense, and they just never did it tonight.
Yeah, it was a disappointing end because the Bills lost, like Mike said, not playing like the Bills that we had seen all regular season. Sean McDermott had stayed aggressive. He was aggressive on the opening drive, going for it on 4th and 1 from the 48. And then after that, and I know the Bills didn't lose because they kicked 2 field goals in the red zone, but you don't know what it could have been, Jenna. I sit here and people go, well, they lost by, it only would have been so many points of a swing. You don't know what that pressure would have done. And I go back, and the one that really stands out to me is the field goal before the end of the half to drive down there. And I know it would have, and Sean McDermott said after the game, it would have been so hard to not come away with points from that drive. And he goes, because the Chiefs were getting the ball at half. To me, because the Chiefs were getting the ball at half, made it sound even more that I wanted them to go for it, because the Chiefs come down and kick a field goal and it goes from a 2-possession game to a 2-possession game. It would have made no difference if the opening drive, Jenna, of the second half and the Bills were down 21-6 or 21-9 to 20, 21-9, than if they were down anything else. Like, it went from a 12-possession game to a 15-possession game when the Chiefs did. It was just a mess. I'm disappointed.
Yeah, I completely agree, because I feel like all week leading up to this, we talked about how aggressive they needed to be. We talked about how you can't settle for field goals. That was a key to the game. You have to be aggressive. You have to get after it, and you have to get 6. You have to get 6. I understand that this offense you're used to seeing it, but especially before the half, Dan and I, we were watching the game together, and we were like, I hate that. I hate going, like, I didn't even think, even when Tony Romo saw the field goal unit come on, he was like, oh, are they going to kick it? Like, he was even shocked, because you can't, if it's going to be a shootout, you're going to a knife fight with a donut. Like, it's just not the same. If you're not going to do any damage, you have to be a viable threat. And I don't even know where that came up. I came up with that. But, like, if you look at this game, the pressure that it would have put on this team to have, it'd be a touchdown before the half for the Bills. It makes you think of would have, could have, should have. And it's just frustrating, because we've seen how great Allen and his weapons can play this season, Mike. But it just, give credit to the Chiefs defense. Like, they brought a lot of pressure. They threw off a unit that's so productive.
Steve Spagnuolo's defense was great tonight. Honestly, the Chiefs coaching staff, top to bottom, Eric Bieniemy, Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, they outcoached the Bills. They were more aggressive. They had a better plan. You heard Micah Hyde say he thought he had a good plan. I guess. But, I mean, Tyreek Hill is fast. Travis Kelce gets open in the middle field. Heck, Jason Kelce would have got him open tonight against the Bills defense. They just weren't, I won't say weren't prepared, but they've already seen the Chiefs once this year. Like, if you had never seen them, you might say, wow, that speed caught us by surprise. They saw Tyreek Hill. They knew the Chiefs did. I feel like we didn't get the best of the Bills. Now, it's a championship game setting. Maybe it was too big for this team. They got through every step during the way. They kept finding ways to impress us week after week after week. And maybe the stage behind me in Arrowhead, third straight AFC Championship, was too much for him tonight, Dan.
Yeah, it was one of those games where I felt like where the Bills didn't throw any new wrinkles at the Chiefs. It looked like a carbon copy of the Week 6 game. It looked like they hit copy and paste on the game plan, and they did nothing to put the Chiefs on their heels. Patrick Mahomes sat back there in the pocket with all day to throw, and it was a soft zone that he just hit guys underneath. There was missed tackles. It was a very passive approach to this game, which is what we didn't want to see, Jenna. That was where it was frustrating, that they didn't go down scratching and clawing and going with their style. And you want to know what? Yeah, Josh Allen did get rattled. Sean McDermott kind of said after the game, there were some plays where there were shades of Houston. He had 4 sacks, Mike, and those went for 60 yards, his sacks. They were crushing. It was plays like that where it just didn't look like this team. And it had that look, like I said before, where Josh Allen's jogging off the field, Mike, and is going like, I don't know what's going on.
It was so upsetting too, because
you're right,
I know we talked about.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, all I was going to say is Dan's right and about that. And I think because of the way the Bills played the game, Allen started to press. Like, it seemed like every time he had the ball after the Chiefs took the lead, he was trying to score 3 touchdowns instead of just taking what was moving down the field. He got rattled because the margin for error was gone. I mean, the Chiefs scored on almost every possession. They got to the Bills' red zone basically on every possession after they fumbled that ball early. And Allen felt that pressure, I think. And that's what I think he struggled with. They got behind, and he felt like he had to make a play, and he made a ton of mistakes at that point.
Yeah, completely. And I think what we saw, and we even talked about earlier in the week, how, like, you know, going up against Tom Brady in his first couple of seasons, it always seemed like that moment was just so much bigger. And maybe Allen kind of like turtled in that moment. But I felt like when you had Allen not playing well, and then some of the decision-making in terms of going to kick field goals, I feel like that bolstered even more how much they weren't trusting Allen to make those plays. And to see the Chiefs go down the field and continue to score, it was like this team got away from everything that has made them so successful throughout the season. And I think that is the most frustrating part, is like this team got out-coached, and that is not something that we're used to seeing, considering obviously Sean McDermott has experience at this level. You have Brian Dable. This was his 9th AFC Championship. Leslie Frazier has had success. He's won a Super Bowl. You know what I mean? Like those types of things where it's so frustrating, because this is not even like, oh, the Bills didn't play well. It was like everything I felt like fell apart for them.
Yeah, Jenna, it was interesting. Just kind of you talking about that right there. It felt like the vibe of the game, what the feel of the game, even us just in, you know, the sports office, the way that when the Bills were up 9-0, you just had a sense that like they were just holding on for as long as they could, and that you weren't going to win this game. And it felt like every field goal the Bills kicked was like -3 points or like -4 points. Like they were leaving points out there. And it wasn't like the Bills defense was doing anything to slow down the Chiefs offense, that you knew that they had just scored 21 unanswered points. You weren't going to shut them out in the second half. Like a field goal just felt like it was an empty promise of like, oh, well, we're going to get a stop. Like you weren't going to get another stop. And Jenna, your donut to a gunfight is pretty accurate. They didn't come in with this puncher's chance. And when they got punched in the face by the Chiefs, Mike's laughing over there because he knows it's true.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Here's why I'm laughing. It's late and Jenna's hungry.
Yeah, I was about to say that. You know I'm hungry. I had dinner too, but I'm hungry. I can't wait to eat. But yes.
Yeah.
No,
okay.
It felt like that. It was like they making those types of decisions, and to see Allen not get into a rhythm and then to take him off the field, I said, we are not, to me, it said, we are not prepared for this.
Yeah, I will say that the Chiefs are the better team. And, you know, I picked them. We all picked the Bills to win. And I think we were going off of the way the Chiefs had shown themselves. And I think they were disappointed in how they had played certainly even in the Cleveland game. But, Mahomes got banged up in that game. When he was on the field, they were pretty good. I thought their defense got pushed around a little. But, they closed the season. They didn't need a lot. And then they took the week off. Then they had the bye. They came out tonight and played like a championship team. And I guess I understand the frustration. I saw it on social media from fans that were – Brian Daboll had a bad night. Leslie Frazier had a bad night. Sean McDermott had a bad night. These guys had great seasons for this team.
Yeah.
And I know it's going to be in hindsight, and it's going to take a while to get over this. But at a point, you're going to look back and go, there's a lot to be excited about. That being said, they got to learn from this because guess what? The place behind me is going to have great football for a while. And Mahomes ain't going anywhere. And Andy's not going anywhere. And Hill's not going anywhere. So they're going to have to figure out a way to deal with this team.
Yeah, and that's the point that I guess is the most frustrating for me is not only did they not play well, I didn't think they were coached well. And all you had to do was have Josh Allen and Brian Daboll and those guys look at what Patrick Mahomes was doing. Mahomes didn't thread the needle today. Like he didn't have to. He took what was underneath and they got yards after the catch. Like even when Cole Beasley caught the ball underneath, he'd make two guys miss and gain 7 more yards. But instead, it goes back to your point, Mike, and Sean McDermott kind of agreed that the moment was just a little bit too big for Josh. And he understands that. And he knew that it was progress just to get here. And the experience of Josh playing in the AFC Championship game, that was big. But Josh, once again, against the Chiefs, whether it's looking at Mahomes and seeing, I got to top him, but instead of just saying, Mahomes just took what the Bills gave them. That was the championship caliber and the championship pedigree that the Chiefs had and that we had seen at times earlier in this season from Josh of not trying to play hero ball. It was hero ball Josh. That's what we saw today. It was trying to force the ball into double coverage and fit it, and fit a football through the eye of a needle.
Yeah. I think
honestly, you guys both made good points. Jenna, I wanted to go to one you tweeted about during the game, and it was right on the money. Kansas City had the worst red zone defense in the league, and the Bills looked inept when they got down deep. And it really was costly when they had those opportunities early. They couldn't do anything against Kansas City. Allen, he made some really poor choices down deep in Kansas City's territory. And
he admitted that.
And then he had 2 of those opportunities taken away by his head coach. Yeah, he did. And that was really painful. And then, Dan, you also talked about earlier this week of when Josh goes against a great player like Mahomes, it's almost like he's trying to prove something. And whether it's how far you can throw the ball or the type of play you can make. And maybe this is what he'll learn, to take what's there. And then when the opportunity comes, you strike for something big.
I completely agree with both those points. It's like you wanted to tell Josh before the game, you are good enough. Like I felt like he needed that moment of like, you are worthy of this opportunity. You are good enough. Like I know that sounds so silly, but in my head it was like I felt like, it's so hard to compete with Patrick Mahomes, and he's going to put up so many points, but it's like you earned your way here as well. And this Bills team had played so well, and I think it was just the nerves of the moment. And then when things didn't start to go well, it kind of continued to kind of fall apart. Then the red zone issues. But Mike, you brought up a good point because we're gonna be a positive podcast. So there's a lot of encouragement for the future. So Mike, what do you think is one of the biggest encouraging factors as we now look ahead maybe to the 2021 season?
Well, I would say you got one team that is superior to you in the AFC, right? This is a pretty darn good football team that they lost to tonight. Now, I said this earlier, you got to find a way to beat them, but we're talking about the Bills as an elite team in the NFL, and they are, and so it's not like they have that far to go. Now, they got things to work on. They need to be more balanced offensively. Allen needs to adjust a little bit. They've got to get more of a pass rush. I mean, there are things they need to fix, but these are tweaks to a roster. The Bills haven't been in this position in a long time, and I tweeted it out. It was January of 1989. Young Jim Kelly went to Cincinnati and lost to Boomer Esiason and the Bengals. And it was early that they made it to the AFC Championship game, and they got there. And then the next year they lost a tough playoff game to Cleveland, and then they went on their run. It might seem disappointing, but Kansas City, with Alex Smith, lost the playoff game and they were winning. The next year they got to the AFC Championship game with Mahomes, and they blew that game. And then they started to figure it out. So as much as this hurts, you go into next year as one of the best teams in the NFL with still a pretty young roster of talented players. That's pretty encouraging. Now, the downside, we got to watch Brady in the Super Bowl again.
I actually have a hot take here. I want to see Brady win more than I want to see the Chiefs run it back.
Oh boy.
I don't know. I'm probably going to get a lot of heat for that. But
to go off of Mike's point, though, we hope you've made it this long in the video.
You want to see Brady win?
I do. That's how much I don't like the Chiefs. But yeah,
this is a positive. Yeah, this is the positive point of the video. Understanding that last year's pain against Houston kind of fueled the Bills to get here, and I really think it did. And you say that this is going to hurt, and it may be in a month or two, or in a day or two, or in a couple weeks. Like, they will break down this film and go like, we had chances that we left out there, and to understand that, like, yeah, the better team won. Like, they kind of shot themselves in the foot, but to understand that Sean McDermott had said, right in the post game before he was even off the field, said, we'll be back. And then Josh Allen said, we'll be back. And like, when they say that, it didn't just seem like a cliche or like some rah-rah speech or like, this win one for the Gipper. Like they really seem to understand that Josh said, we're young and we're only going to get better. And like, I like that confidence. Like that's the confidence that I wish they would have had during the game. Jenna, like you said, like I wish they would have understood like they belonged, because they just didn't seem to be that team that really believed it. But I really do believe, I'll agree with them, that this is not the end of something. This is the beginning. And like Mike said, maybe they were a hair early, but this is where they were supposed to be. And if you would have told fans and this roster before the season, you're going to make it to the AFC Championship game and get a chance to play Kansas City for a shot to go to the Super Bowl, you would have taken it in a heartbeat. And there are pieces to build off of this. So, Mike? Mike's like kept in a cage.
I was like, that is
like, no, did I lose you?
Oh, I think we lost you. All right,
did I lose you there for a second? Yeah. You got me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Like I said, in hindsight, after whatever, I will say this. As a guy who followed Andy Reid and the Eagles back in the day, they got to an NFC championship like this against the greatest show on turf. And they could have pulled that upset and won that game. And I think they regretted the way they played. They thought they could win, but they made some dumb mistakes and they ended up losing. And that team ended up losing for 2 more NFC championship games till they finally made it to the Super Bowl. But I will say this, it's going to be painful for Bills fans over the next couple of weeks to watch that Super Bowl game just because of how far this team has come. But that being said, it's over now. This team had a great year, but they have every reason to be disappointed in the way it ended. And they'll just have to look forward to an offseason to fix some of these problems that really showed themselves tonight here in Kansas City.
You can be disappointed and encouraged. And I think tonight is kind of an an example of that. All right, we're going to wrap up here. Mike has got to catch his plane in about 3 hours, but hope you enjoyed your barbecue, Mike. We'll have plenty more coverage. We'll have more breakdowns of this game as well as the future for the Bills, the draft, all that great stuff. We're not going anywhere. You're stuck with all of us. But we'll wrap it up here for Mike Catalana and Dan Fates. I am Jenna Cottrell. We will see you on the next video coming up soon.